Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Grebner Show. This is Scott Kerker, along with Metalmore head coach Jared Grebner. Coach, Friday night wasn't supposed to rain, but it did, and we went over to Morton last Friday. Took our perfect 5-0 record, 3-0 in the Mid-Atlantic Conference, over to Morton. Knew going in, Morton's running back Seth Glatz was going to be probably a little bit of a thorn in our side. But Morton came out and played awfully well.
You have to give Morton a lot of credit. They were able to do some things against us offensively to our defense. We expected Glatz to get the ball plenty of times. I think he carried it 32 times. And we expected him to be the feature back, of course, of their offense and kind of the workhorse. But we still weren't able to do enough to slow him down.
I think a little over 200 yards rushing. But, when you look over the years and you look at all the good programs, there's always that one week in every season where things just don't. Sometimes you're lucky enough to win, but there's always that game in there that just never seems to, nothing seems to click. With Coach Ryan, it was always the second game of the year. I remember going up to Riverside Brookfield and putting, I think, 60 on Riverside, and then coming home and beating a decent Washington team, only 14-7. A couple years ago, Rochester was rolling through their Central State 8 schedule and went down to Decatur MacArthur and got beat. There's always that year, every year, there's always that game, that team that just for whatever reason kind of comes up and snake bites you a little bit.
And we had that, on Friday night. And like I said, Morton had a lot to do with it, but it was just one of those things where I didn't think our focus was where it needed to be. But you'll have that. You don't want to have it too often, of course. And and we watched the film. We made corrections. Everybody, coaches included, they know where we need to clean things up, and so. That's a loss that we'll hopefully learn from.
Right, and you guys have had a history of that, of when things don't go quite right, you've been able to clean things up, and we've come back and played much better the next week and the weeks to follow that, and hopefully that's what will happen again today, and I have no doubt that's what will happen.
Hopefully it kind of resets our focus. Mm-hmm. Not that our effort was bad, we'll never question our effort, but sometimes our discipline, we just weren't quite where we needed to be. But I think it will kind of reset our focus, maybe reset how we approach practice every single day. And with the senior leaders, what a great group of seniors that we have. I have no doubt that, they'll take the reins and, we'll have a much better week of practice.
Right. And that always, I don't know if it's with every team, but it just seems to be with Metalmore that however we practice is how we play. And for the most part, we always practice well.
Every practice has been great so far this year. We had a couple of hiccups this past week. It was a little bit of a roller coaster ride. We had our highs, we had our lows. And unfortunately, some of that carried over to Friday night. But that'll all be corrected, and we'll be ready to go next week.
You fell to Morton 40-30. As badly as you probably figured we played, we still only lost by 10, and I thought they maybe played their best game of the year.
They played well on defense. They played well on offense. Glatz was able to find the cutback lanes. We weren't just fitting quite right where we needed to be. Defense, they got penetrations. They got a big stop on 4th down when we had a chance to cut the lead even more. But credit to our kids, they never gave up. We fell behind 2 scores. There in the second half, even after they had the big kickoff return, that put us down even more. and we just kept fighting and fighting. Our offense gets back on the field. They make some huge fourth down conversions on that one drive, 4th and 5, 4th and 10 to keep the drive alive, which we ended up scoring. We ended up getting a stop finally on defense there in the second half, and we were able to get a little bit of momentum, but then it ended up just being too much Glatz in the end.
Yeah, it was unfortunately. The fortunate part of it is still got a game Friday night against Pekin, a meaningful game. You went out, and it's going to be a little bit of a tough thing to talk about, but you've got Pekin this week, you got Washington, and then Canton. So 2 of those 3 are going to be pretty tough. But that's kind of how you want it. If you're going to win the conference, you're going to have to go through some tough competition.
And there's always tough competition at the top of the middle line. Pekin's another team that's really good defensively, offensively as well. They're big, they're thick up front. They have skilled players to go with it, with Tyler, and so they're going to be a tough opponent ahead of us, and that's where we have to have our complete focus and got to be locked in this week.
Yeah, I think their line is probably the biggest in the middle line. I think their center is, what did you say, 350?
He's around 350, maybe a little bit bigger. And the thing is, the kid has good feet too. He can move. He's good, and when he gets his hand on you in a phone booth, he's tough to get off of.
Yeah, and even if he doesn't get your hand on you, you got to get around him, and that 350 is a big white body.
He can create some space. He can get good movement, and so we're going to have to use good technique in order to counter him a little bit, and in order to help slow down Tyler.
And they've got some other good running backs too. The quarterback, I think it's Scotty Jordan, a pretty solid quarterback who I think last week passed for close to 200 yards passing. So they've got some receivers.
And they can do it, in multiple ways. They had a great outing versus Canton throwing the ball. They had some big plays throwing the ball versus Washington, and then all of a sudden you throw in their running backs in the mix, and you got yourself some problems to take care of. And they use their talent well, and so we're going to have to be able to contain all aspects of the game.
Yeah, it's not going to be a pushover, and that's fine, because a win is a win.
Mm-hmm. And we'll take any win. The one good thing about this slate that we have is, if you want to meet your playoff aspirations and those goals that you have set forth, you're going to have to play good teams week in, week out, and you're going to see tough tests, and we're going to see how we respond this week.
Yeah, and if that's going to happen, if there's going to be a hiccup along the way, you want to have it happen in the regular season, so your kids have a chance to respond, and there's more games. If that happens in the playoffs and you have a hiccup, you're done.
Mm-hmm. And so, like I talked about, there's going to be a chance for us to refocus. We're glad it happened in the regular season. Everybody on this team's a competitor. All the coaches are competitors. Nobody likes to lose, but if you have to, we'd rather it be now where we can learn from it and grow going forward.
Yeah. I thought, even in the loss, I thought there was a couple of guys that to me stood out. I thought Connor Willerton had just an outstanding game. Did a lot to help get back into the game. And there was some big fourth down plays that he just made outstanding runs.
He shouldered a lot of the load. He did a tremendous job passing the ball. He threw some deep balls where Caden went and got it, TJ went and got it. I was glad to see those guys compete on some of those 50-50 balls. And then, when things broke down, or if they had people covered, Connor was able to make some plays with his legs and convert some fourth downs or some long situations, and turn some bad plays into some pretty good plays.
You go into this Friday, last regular season home game against Pekin. Here we are, week 7 already. Season's just flying by, isn't it?
Time flies. We have to take advantage of every opportunity we have together. This team, we only have so many opportunities. We only have so many opportunities to play on this beautiful field out here, and so we have to just come together, rally around one another, and come out and play as one unit Friday night.
Yeah, because there's only so many of these Friday nights left, and yeah, you know, it does seem like it's a pretty close group. I'm sure they were not happy with that loss. I'm sure that probably hit some of those kids pretty hard, especially the seniors.
Yeah, it's always you know, kind of a punch to the gut when you get beat. No one goes out on the field expecting to lose. Everybody expects to win. They went out confident. It didn't go in our favor, and you know, we'll be ready to go and try and do our best to make sure that doesn't happen again.
We've already had the senior night, so this will be a little bit different. You play your last home game regular season. Hope to have some playoff games here at Malone, but there will be senior night. We did that the first game, which is probably a nice thing, and get that done and out of the way. But it's nice to know that your next big opponent, the one of the big dogs, you get at Malone Field.
It's always nice to play at home. The crowd's been great. The community support's been wonderful. It's always nice to play on Malone Field. It's just something about being home with this atmosphere just makes it special, and we need to just take advantage of those opportunities that we get underneath these Friday night lights because they're precious. You know, you only get so many of them, and so we need to go out and just take care of business.
And I'm pretty sure you're going to be able to do that this week. You know, and speaking of, you know, being the head coach of the varsity team, but you're also a dad of one of the freshman players, and the freshman team is now 5-0 or 6-0. Excuse me, they're now 6-0. Freshman team's looking awfully good.
And there's growing pains just like with everything else. We've talked about this before, but some haven't played football before, and so it's nice to see that group, you know, come along, get more aggressive, and just feel more confident and comfortable with their roles.
You know, they've had to withstand some injuries. They had a rash of injuries early, and were able to move some kids around and still get some wins against some pretty good opponents. The future of Metamora football does look bright.
It's a group that continues to work hard. Same thing with the JV team. I mean, those guys put in a lot of work, and so when you start putting those pieces together, we're excited for what the future holds.
Yeah, it's going to be awfully good down the road. We got to get through this season first, and this is a good team, and I'm sure you don't want to take anything away from any of those guys, because it's always special for those seniors.
Oh, it's definitely special. Like you said, it could possibly be the last game at Malone Field. Hopefully it's not. You know, hopefully we have some more, but we know for sure it's the last regular season game. So we just got to put the blinders on this week and go and compete with the task that's hand, and that's Pekin this week.
Well, Coach, congratulations. You're 5-1. It's a good season, and you're 3-1 in the Mid-Atlantic Conference. Conference is still there for the taking.
You know, this conference is, like I mentioned earlier, it's a tough conference, and you never know what's going to happen on Friday night. You don't always know exactly what team's going to show up on Friday night, and so that's the one thing that makes high school sports in general special. You get great competition, you get great kids out there, wonderful student athletes that are all coming together for one common goal.
Well, Coach, we'll let you get going here. I know you got some things you got to get to, but thank you so much, and we'll see you Friday night.
All right, thank you very much.
See you Friday night at Malone Field.